HMS Plymouth makes absolutely no sense, and in order to explain why, I'm going to give you a rundown of the ship's fundamental characteristics and compare them to the characteristics of other Tier 7 cruisers, specifically the main battery reload time. And then after that, I'm going to launch into a wider discussion about balancing and tier placement in this game, generally speaking, because I think there are some problems here. So on to HMS Plymouth. Tier 7 Premium British Light Cruiser, I think the very first Tier 7 Premium ship available for direct sale via doubloons. And in order to purchase this ship, I believe you have to spend about as much as you would have to spend on a AAA game of this current time. So the price of a whole AAA game for one single premium ship, whether that's worth it to you or not, I don't know, but the Plymouth is ridiculously strong, probably a little too overpowered. It has 16 152mm guns that only fire armor-piercing, but it's a British ship, so it's British light cruiser armor-piercing, which means it gets better penetration and better penetration angles than any other light cruiser AP in the game, and plus it's got a very, very potent alpha strike of just over 3,000, so 16 152mm guns with a 3K alpha strike. This thing could theoretically dev strike any lightly armored cruiser in the game that it could penetrate, provided it gets 16 Citadel hits. That's a huge theoretical DPM. But the DPM, the other side of that calculation, is of course reload time. How fast do these 16 152mm guns with a 3K alpha strike reload? Well, I'm glad you asked, because if you spec into the reload with the reload module in the third mod slot, maybe Mimbelli as an inspiration, can't remember if I've got him on this build or not, but also the legendary skill that decreases reload time rather than fully packed, well, you could get a 4.7 second reload on these guns, and that is nuts. Look at how much damage we're doing to this broadside Republique. We're going to do over 60k in the span of just a couple moments, a few salvos at him. We might as well be a battleship with all the damage we're doing to his broadside. We're just taking more time than a battleship would to do the same kind of damage. Anyway, that's a lot of firepower. Imagine what this does to destroyers. It is crazy. But not only does Plymouth get this kind of firepower with this many guns, it also gets a fantastically incredible concealment if you build for it with the concealment mod and Mikawa as an inspiration. 9.7 kilometer detectability by sea. That's ridiculously stealthy for a cruiser. And if you don't want to choose the British smokescreen, which you can pick as your fourth consumable, you can select radar instead. And the radar you get has a 9.9 km range and a 40-second duration. 9.9 km range on the radar, 9.7 km detectability range on the ship. That's right, stealth radar for 40 seconds. That alone makes this cruiser completely OP, because there's no counter for destroyers for stealth radar. As soon as they spot the cruiser, they're in radar range. There should be a cushion between the maximum radar range and the maximum concealment range, or the lowest you can get the concealment range, that allows ships to spot the radar ship before they're in the radar range. That is counterplay. That's how it should work anyway. Doesn't matter for Plymouth, it can get stealth radar, or it can get the smoke screen. It's also got 41,000 hit points, which seems like an awful lot of hit points for a light cruiser at tier 7. To be fair, it has no armor whatsoever except for its Citadel belt armor, which can bounce even the largest caliber battleship guns in this game, although not consistently, because the armor scheme can be overmatched everywhere except the belt by pretty much any battleship you're going to face, and the bow and stern plating is, I think, only 16 millimeters, so that means it can be overmatched even by some heavy cruisers. So not a lot of armor at all, not necessarily a great rudder shift or great speed either, not an especially agile cruiser, but a very survivable one, and one with a ridiculous amount of firepower. Plus, it's got torpedoes, 4 on either side. They have a 10-kilometer range. They hit fairly hard, and they can be fired all in one single line because they are, of course, British. So why was this ship placed at Tier 7? I don't know, but I want to provide you some context here and launch into an overall discussion of the tier placement in this ship. And for that, we need to go back to the beginning. World of Warships Legends was a sort of translation of the World of Warships PC game, but not necessarily a direct translation. Although if you follow my translation metaphor, then you have to sort of think a translation would follow a certain structure because, like a language, it would follow a structure, and that structure would have logic and a high degree of consistency to it. And for most of Legends' life, that consistency in the translation hasn't really been there, even from the beginning, although it was more consistent and more logical in the beginning. Legends was designed with only 7 tiers initially, and I think that's because the original concept was to feature only real ships, that is, actual naval legends as playable units. And for the most part, the majority of the ships at Tier 8 and below on World of Warships PC are actual naval vessels. Now, Legends, as a translation to a different video game system, consoles, wanted to streamline the experience you get on PC, make it a little bit more accessible and a little bit quicker paced, so it did that in part by removing the lowest of the low-tier ships from the tech tree grind on PC. Think the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, removed those, and then for the higher tier ships above that, it followed a fairly consistent rule when it translated them from PC to console. Take any ship on PC at Tier 8 and below, and subtract 1 from its tier number, you've, generally speaking, got its tier on Legends. All the Tier 8 ships are Tier 7, all the Tier 7 ships are Tier 6, and so on. It is pretty consistent at these lower tiers, and it was pretty consistent in the beginning. And this was fine in the beginning, although even in the beginning there were notable exceptions like the Iowa, which is a Tier 9 tech tree ship on PC, placed at Tier 7 on Legends, presumably because of the legendary nature of the actual Iowa class of battleship. But Iowa always did feel like a little bit of a strange jump from the line that began with Wyoming and went through Colorado. Those two ships and the one in between, the New Mexico, are all Dreadnought-style American Standard-class battleships, whereas the Iowa is a more modern, fast American battleship. And the jump in feel between Colorado and Iowa is, and still to this day, is pretty jarring on Legends, more so than it is on PC, because the Iowa and the Colorado have the North Carolina in between them. Colorado is Tier 7, North Carolina is Tier 8, Iowa is Tier 9, and then, of course, Iowa is succeeded by the Montana at Tier 10 on PC, which is our legendary tier American battleship here. And that tech tree progression on PC makes a lot more sense because there's more tiers to spread out these higher tier ships in. On Legends, it makes a little bit less sense. So with this sort of direction of the conversation, you may begin to see the problem here. The original vision went away pretty quickly because Legends grew pretty quickly, so they had to add in the higher tier ships for more content and more progression, right? And the tier placement, by necessity, had to be compressed into Tier 7. So you saw ships like the Jean Bart, for example, a very strong Tier 9 premium battleship on PC, placed into Tier 7 on Legends. And you can tell, the Jean Bart especially does feel a little bit too strong for its tier. Some people call it overpowered. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it is incredibly strong, probably too strong for Tier 7, if that's overpowered, whatever. In any case, it probably would feel more at home at Tier 8. And that is why I had hoped, with the incorporation of Tier 8, that there would be in future tier placement for tech tree and premium ships, more logic and more consistency in the translation. Tier 7 ships could have been Tier 8 ships from PC, Tier 8 ships could have been Tier 9, Tier 10 could have been Legendary. It would have all made sense, but even with the introduction of Tier 8, right from the get-go we got Republique, a Tier 10 tech tree battleship placed at Tier 8, followed by the Musashi, which I guess makes sense because it is Tier 9, so it would make sense at Tier 8 in Legends, but the Republique, another ship I think is probably too strong for its tier and should be at Legendary tier. So should the Plymouth, and probably so should things like the Summers. What is the point of having Tier 7, Tier 8, and Legendary, which weren't in the game at the beginning, if you are still going to take high-tier ships on PC, not follow the -1 rule that is pretty consistent throughout the majority of ships in the rest of this game, and place them at different tiers, with ridiculously high statistics like the Plymouth has, with ridiculous DPM, ridiculous amount of guns, ridiculous concealment, stealth radar. I don't understand why this is being done, to be perfectly honest with you. It doesn't have to be done. I mean, what is the justification for this? If this is a Tier 10 premium cruiser on PC, why not just put it at Legendary tier? It's got 16 guns with a crazy reload. I mean, why? Because the Minotaur exists? Can there not be more than one light British cruiser at the Legendary tier? It makes no sense to me. This tier placement for HMS Plymouth makes no sense. And furthermore, I don't know how I necessarily feel about the fact that you can buy this ship just straight up for doubloons. Obviously, it costs a lot of doubloons. I wouldn't personally spend all that money for a single ship, I don't think. I'd maybe get it if there was a sale or something like that, or if I were so inclined to throw the price of a AAA game at a single ship, then, I mean, this is a very, very, very strong ship. If you are so inclined, why would you not buy it? I don't know. In any case, this ship is too strong for Tier 7. There are probably already calls for it to be nerfed, and those calls may be heeded at a future date, which will upset people because they paid real money for this ship, and if it does get a nerf, then, you know, they'll feel like that's not what they paid for, right? That happened to some degree with the Weimar. It could happen again with the Plymouth, but potentially even be worse, and if that does happen, I feel like it could all have been avoided if the Plymouth was placed at Tier 10, or not Tier 10, but Legendary tier, where it should be. Or I guess we could call it Tier 9. Legendary tier really is sort of the Tier 9 of this game. But yeah, the tier placement makes no sense to me. This cruiser is crazy. If you want to buy it and you have the means, you're willing to spend that much money on it, it is fantastic, but I don't know. Will it be nerfed in the future? Time will tell. I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comments, and I also think I should end the video by saying that, of course, balance can't be oversimplified by just talking about tier placement. That's not all there is to it. My point is you have 3 tiers of high ships on PC and 3 high tiers on Legends. Why not translate those ships according to the same way you translated the lower tier ships in terms of their tier placement? Why not? I don't know. I think if that translation rule, that -1 rule, was more consistently followed in the introduction of new ships that are translations of ships from PC, I think we would have better balance overall. That, I think, is my overall point in this video. Yes, that is it. So let me know what you think in the comments. Give the video a thumbs up if you found this discussion interesting. Consider subscribing for more discussions of this wonderful nature in the future, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.